Get your ears wrapped around the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast. All the scoop you need to know, from college basketball to the NBA and even March Madness. News of your rising stars, topics on and off the hardwood. This is the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast.
All right, buddy, peace. As you guys know, Sean Cottle, host of the GSMC Basketball Podcast show, brought to you by GSMC Sports Network. We have a very exciting show for you today, guys. We're going to be recapping So yesterday we spent a lot of time really just reacting to the news of Damian Lillard being traded to the Milwaukee Bucks, and only use this episode for our show to actually thoroughly analyze it and look at it from all angles and look at who quote unquote won the trade and who benefits the most from it, and just gonna break it down from all angles. So be sure to stick around for the final segment of our show as well, guys, where we're going to actually discuss some more Bucks talk, but we're going to discuss more like more of the relationship between Hakeem Olajuwon and Giannisantetokounmpo and how that could bode well for both of them. So with that being said, guys, let's go ahead and get right into it. So the first question I really want to ask about this trade is, do the Bucks actually get better with this trade? And I alluded to it a little bit yesterday. I talked about how the Bucks would be, or giving up one of their best perimeter defender in Drew Holiday while getting a better perimeter offensive player in Damian Lillard. But the pushback I got from that was that Giannis and Brook Lopez are both all defensive players, both former defensive player of the years, and that was not Brook Lopez but Giannis, and people were telling me that the Bucks wouldn't have an issue defensively because they would still have those players in the low post. But people have to, my pushback to that is that sometimes those low post players sometimes are hidden, or some of their deficiencies aren't shown because of the defensive prowess on the perimeter. So, i.e., like Drew Holiday. So what I'm saying is Drew Holiday sometimes covered up a lot of the deficiencies in the low post for Milwaukee, but also what happens is that there's less pressure on the low post in Milwaukee because of guys like a Drew Holiday that guard the perimeter. And what happens is now when you lose that perimeter defense, you put now more pressure on guys in the low post. And now what happens is you might see guys start to get in foul trouble because they have to rim protect more, and you make those guys have to work even harder than what they already do on the defensive end, which might take away from their offensive capabilities and their offensive efficiency. And that's why I felt like the matchup or the combination of having Drew Holiday and Milwaukee was so beneficial, and it fit perfectly. And what we have noticed as well, we're transitioning to the offense side of the ball. Drew Holiday is a point guard who fits seamlessly into any system, into any offensive scheme, which is why he's going to have so many suitors. We'll talk about that later on in the show. But guys, he can play off the ball as well. He doesn't need to have plays set up for him in order to score. He can kind of score within the offense. And you get guys like a Giannis and Damian Lillard, who are so talented, and they like to have the ball in their hands because they like to play, make, and facilitate and create. Damian Lillard less than Giannis, but Dame can play off the ball because he shoots well off the catch, but Giannis is someone who needs the ball in his hand to play, make, and create shots for himself. Doesn't particularly play off the ball too well, but then why would you? You want the ball in the hands of your best player, and that's what Milwaukee does. But in order to diversify the offense, something that Golden State has shown well, that you need your best players to be able to play off the ball. That's why when Golden State was most proficient, guys like Steph and KD, when KD was there, were able to play off the ball. So the question becomes, can Giannis play off the ball when the ball is in Dame's hands? And I would, based on what I've seen, I would say Dame can play off the ball when the ball is in Giannis' hands. But it was much more of a fluid mix and matchup when having Drew Holiday there with Giannis. And what you lose defensively, I would say you make up for offensively by losing Drew Holiday but getting Damian Lillard. So how much better does Milwaukee get? If anything, it's marginally better. They get marginally better, but I will say this: in the right now moment, it's a great trade for Milwaukee because one, it doesn't necessarily validate, or it doesn't necessarily mean that Giannis is not going to stay in Milwaukee. I still stand by what I said 3 weeks ago. Now Giannis will be leaving Milwaukee. He's not going to spend his whole career in Milwaukee. But what happens now is you are certified for the next 3 years. You're going to have a superstar a star player in Damian Lillard. And what now comes into play is that Milwaukee is in win right now mode. Milwaukee is in win right now mode. You have to win before you lose Giannis, because now what happens is, and I know the picks that they traded are so far away, it's hard to even fathom and think about 2028, 2029. But if you lose Giannis and you don't win a championship, Milwaukee is going to pay immensely for that because of the picks they gave up. So they have to win right now. They have to win right now. There's no other option, because if you don't, not only do you not win, you also lose one of the best players in the world, and you're in rebuilding mode for at least the next 10 years because of the picks that you've given up. So, is Milwaukee better in the right now? Yes. Are they better in the long term? I would have to say it depends. We'll see how things go. But did Milwaukee get better? I would say marginally. Marginally, they got better. Marginally, but I still don't think they need to make the trade, and that's nothing against Dame. Dame is a great player, yes, but I don't think they needed to make that trade right now. I just don't. I don't. But what this does benefit, though, I will say this keeps Miami from getting better. This keeps Philly from getting better. This keeps Boston from getting better by adding Dame. You prevent those teams from getting better by adding Damian Lillard, right? So, and I'll say why I'm being specific about that later on in our next segment, actually. But Milwaukee keeps the playing field leveled for right now. Keeps the playing field leveled, and it makes them better. It does. Like I said, if you had to say, based on everything right now, how everything is constructed, I would say that Milwaukee's the team favorite to come out of the East. But in our next segment, I'm actually going to discuss why there's a little more nuance to that. So, guys, actually be sure to stick around for our next segment, guys. I'm going to cover all of that. We're going to be right back, so stick around. Alright, welcome back. In case you missed the first segment of our show, we just dissected and broke down a little bit of the nuance of the Damian Lillard trade, and we discussed whether whether Milwaukee actually got better in this trade. And I said yes, but marginally, not as much as people think they did, just because of what they're losing on the defense side of the ball and Jrue Holiday, and how important that perimeter defense was to the defense collectively as a unit for Milwaukee. And in this segment, guys, we're going to be discussing some possible landing spots for Jrue Holiday. But before we get into any of that, guys, if you haven't already, be sure to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button as well, so you guys can stay up to date on all of our latest content that we post daily. And be sure to follow us on Patreon as well. You can do so by going to patreon.com, clicking on the search bar, and typing in GSMC Sports. That way you can get access to all of our exclusive content that we post daily. And if you'd like to support our network and our company, guys, you can do so by following the link in the ticker below. It's streamelements.com/GSMC Sports Network /tip. Once again, it's streamelements.com/GSMC Sports Network /tip. None of this is possible without you guys as fans, so it's just an honor to have this platform and share with you guys my thoughts and my insights on this wonderful game of basketball. So I want to talk about some possible landing spots for Jrue Holiday. So as we know, Jrue Holiday got traded to Portland in this Damian Lillard trade. Essentially, it was a swap for point guard, Damian Lillard for Jrue Holiday. So now in Portland, you have Jrue Holiday with this extremely young core of Scoot Henderson, Anthony Simons, Nasir Little, and DeAndre Ayton. Very young core, right? So you, at face value, you might think to yourself, Portland might have enough to maybe make, with Chauncey Billups, who's a great coach, one of the best coaches in the NBA, in my opinion. You have these guys, you have this group of guys here, and you say to yourself, well, maybe we might be able to, who knows, we might be able to actually compete for a playoff spot with this group of guys, right? And Jrue Holiday can be a nice veteran leader in the locker room, and he can be a positive role model, positive influence for the guys. And we talked about already how important that can be for a young franchise, a young team. But does that outweigh the overhaul you would get in draft capital and in young talent that you would get for Jrue Holiday if you traded him? And the answer is no, it doesn't. You're much more incentivized to trade Jrue Holiday if you're Portland, and that's what's going to happen. Jrue Holiday's not going to play a game in Portland. I can tell you that right now. But what happens now is Jrue Holiday is going to be playing for a contender. And so then I start looking at what are the best possible landing spots. Look, I see what were the best possible landing spots for Jrue Holiday. And first one that comes to mind, I know I said Philly yesterday, but let's really think about this. What about Boston? They lost their starting point guard, Marcus Smart, who was also an all-defensive player, former defensive player of the year. In Jrue Holiday, you get a better version of Marcus Smart, a better offensive player, maybe better defensively. You get a better version of Marcus Smart if you're Boston. Now, you'd have to give up Malcolm Brogdon a couple of picks, but Boston does have a couple of first-round picks that they've just been hanging on to, so they might be willing to unload them and unload them and get Jrue Holiday. Another team is Miami. I'd imagine any package involving Jrue Holiday in Miami would need to involve around Tyler Hero or I'm not even sure. Maybe Kyle Lowry. Just off the top of my head, I know Gabe Vincent is no longer there. And Max Juice is no longer there either. Maybe Duncan Robinson. You'd have to give up something and a couple of picks to get a Drew Holiday. Brooklyn is a possible landing spot, but Philly is also, like I said, Philly is another landing spot. I'd imagine you have to give up Maxey or Harden, but the only thing is if you trade Harden won't stay in Portland. You'll have to buy him out. Is Portland willing to do that? I'm not sure. So that's why I say that Boston is a very likely landing spot for Drew Holiday. And if you had to ask me right now, I think that's where Drew Holiday ends up playing at this season. I think he ends up playing in Boston. And I think that's a great look for Boston. And now what happens is, if you add Drew Holiday to a team with Jason Tatum and and Jaylen Brown and those guys that have there, and Derek White, I now say that Boston team is better than Milwaukee, top to bottom. If that happens, you ask me who's my pick to make it out of the Eastern Conference, then I'd have to say Boston. And you guys know what I think about Boston and their stealing and what they can do with Jason Tatum as their primary option. But that's that. So those are the possible landing spots for Drew Holiday, and that's where I see that shaking up. That's how I see that shaking up. Sorry, if he is to get he will get traded, but if he gets traded to Boston, I think Boston's the best pick. But Boston can offer the most for Portland. You get a quality starting point guard in Malcolm Brogdon, and you can get at least three first round picks. I'm not saying Drew Holiday might be worth 3 first round picks, but you can get at least 2 first round picks and a second rounder, or some sort of combination of that for Drew Holiday. And that's what I would. If you're Portland, that's what you're looking at right now, right? Because they're not looking to win now anyway. The thing is with James Harden, if you trade for James, you'd have to involve Maxey as well, I'd imagine, because they're not going to keep James Harden in Portland, so you have to buy him out. And so what do you trade him for? Does Philly have enough picks? And we know Philly doesn't want to give up on Maxey. So maybe you have to give up Tobias Harris, but that's where we're at with that, and that's my thoughts on that. But let me know what you guys think. Do you guys think that Drew Holiday will be playing in Boston, or will it be Miami, or Brooklyn, New York possibly? Golden State perhaps? Won't get too deep into that, but just know I have some inside information that says that is a very real possibility, Golden State. But if you had to ask me right now, I would say Boston is a primary landing spot for Drew Holiday. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section. Or will he not get traded at all? Will he just stay in Portland? Let me know what you guys think, though, on that. But, guys, in our next segment, we are going to be discussing a very interesting topic. Is Damian Lillard is he the best point guard in the NBA? It's funny, that's how it works. You get traded, you're selling the headline, you're suddenly the main focus for 4 segments of the show, right? How it works. But we're gonna be talking about that. Is Damian Lillard top point guard in the NBA? Be sure to stick around for that, guys. We'll be right back. Alright, welcome back. In case you missed the first couple segments of our show, we discussed if the Bucks actually got better from this trade and what this means for them moving forward and how they're in win now mode and how getting Damian Lillard doesn't guarantee that Giannis will stay in Milwaukee. In the second segment, we discussed some possible landing spots for Jrue Holiday, where he could possibly end up when the season starts. And in this segment, guys, we are going to be discussing whether Damian Lillard is actually the best point guard in the NBA. And before we get into that, guys, if you haven't already, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date on all our latest content that we post daily. And be sure to follow us on Patreon as well. You can do stuff like on patreon.com. Click on the search bar and type again GSMC Sports. That way you can get access to all of our exclusive content that we post daily. But with that being said, guys, let's get right into it. So, is Damian Lillard the best point guard in the NBA? And if you watched our show a couple weeks ago, I talked about how Steph Curry is the best point guard, and I listed off some of the best, the top point guards in the top point guards in the NBA. And I think Steph is the best point guard in the NBA. Right after him, I'd say either Kyrie Irving or Damian Lillard. That's your 2-3, in whatever order you want to name it. And then after that, I'd have Trae Young, or I'd have John Morant, then Trae Young, De'Aaron Fox. And I would have that as my top 5. But you can make the argument though. I'd take Kyrie right now over Damian Lillard. I'd take De'Aaron Fox right now over Damian Lillard. And I'd have Dame at number 4, because I'd take those two guys over Dame. I'd take Kyrie and De'Aaron Fox over Dame right now, but I would still take Dame over Trae Young and John Morant at this point in time. But I don't think Dame is the best point guard in the NBA, and that's no knock on Dame. That's no knock against Dame, but it's just that's just how much talent there is in the league right now, and it's not necessarily, like I said, it's not a slight on him, but if we have to factor in his age, he's 33 years old, same age as Jrue Holiday actually, and he's never been known for his defensive prowess. He has been injured the past couple of years, injury prone. Sorry, at least the past 2 years, and so there's some nuance to that, but just factoring the age and everything, I just don't think Damian Lillard is the best point guard in the NBA. But Steph, I know people say, well, Steph's 34. Why isn't he, considered? Why is he considered the best point guard? Well, that's because his impact. He has a non-pro impact on the game with his ability to play off the ball consistently and shoot proficiently. If we look at Dame's efficiency rating, he's not that efficient, And something I talked about as well was that something that Chauncey Billups has implemented into this new Portland offense is more fluidity within the ball, within the motion of the offense, and less one-on-one action and more, driving kicks and reading reacts. And Dame is someone who likes to have the ball in his hands, as we talked about in the first segment, and he struggled a little bit adjusting to playing off the ball more consistently, but Steph, as we know, has been able to play off the ball consistently throughout. and that's just something that I noticed, and something I would say about that. But you know, let me know what you guys think. Do you guys think Dame is the best point guard in the league? Like I said, I'd have him at 4 at the highest. But I'll still take Steph and Kyrie and De'Aaron Fox over him. But Dame is a great player, you know, and you know, and one thing I also like to bring up is the playoff series or his playoff success. For someone who is highly touted as he is, he hasn't had much success, and especially in the playoffs. People remember the series where he hit the game winner, series clincher, you know, over Westbrook, but how much success has he had deep into the playoffs, and you know how many deep playoff runs has he had? And you know, he's only had one, and that was 2019 when they made it to the Western Conference Finals. But in that series, they got swept by Golden State, and we saw how he played in that series. He didn't play particularly well. So we've seen Dame come up small multiple times, you know, in those type of series, in those big games. But he's a great player, you know. He has come up big when he has come up big. He's come up big, but I think not as much as people think he has. But you know, let me know what you guys. And I'm trying to knock Dame at all. Dame's a great player, man. He'll based on the standards of the NBA and the Hall of Fame regulations, he'll be in the Hall of Fame. But you know, I don't think he's the best player. I don't think he's the best point guard in the NBA. No, that title still goes to Steph. But let me know what you guys think. Is Dame a top 5 point guard? Is he the best point guard in the NBA? Share your thoughts. But that being said, guys, in our next segment, we're going to be discussing the dynamic between Hakeem Olajuwon and Giannis Antetokounmpo. Very interesting dynamic, to say the least. But be sure to stick around for all that, guys. We'll be right back. You're not going to miss it. All right, welcome back. In case you missed the first 3 segments of our show, we discussed the dynamics of the Damian Lillard trade, and we discussed whether Milwaukee actually got better from that trade, and then we also discussed the possible landing spots for Drew Holiday, and then we also discussed whether Damian Lillard is actually a top 5 point guard in the NBA. And I don't think he is. I think he is, but he's at the highest number 4. But let me know what you guys think. Is Damian Lillard the best point guard in the NBA, or where does he rank for you guys? But in this last segment, guys, I just wanted to shed light real quick on the dynamic between Hakeem Olajuwon and Giannis And for those you don't know, Giannis has recently started working out with Hakeem Olajuwon. He follows in the long line of NBA greats that have worked out with Hakeem, and LeBron James and Kevin Durant and Tim Duncan and Kobe Bryant, all of which have spent time in the offseason at some point in their career working with the great Hakeem Olajuwon. As you guys know, Hakeem is arguably the greatest center of all time. He's in my top 10 without a doubt, for top 10 greatest players of all time. And Giannis is, this combination received a lot of attention because of what Gilbert Arenas said when he stated that Giannis doesn't need the moves that Hakeem is going to teach. But it's not necessarily the moves more per se that Hakeem is going to teach Giannis, but more so the footwork. And that footwork that Hakeem is going to teach Giannis is stuff that can be applied in all facets, whether it be in low post, the mid post, even on the perimeter. But Giannis is someone that needs to diversify his offensive game, because he's someone that has relied on his size and athleticism to get him buckets. Now, don't get me wrong, Giannis is a gifted player. But if he's able to diversify his footwork and have actual post moves in the mid post and in the low post, as opposed to just relying on his size, that will make him extremely invaluable and make him, elevate him to that next status of being one of the all-time greats. Because right now, he dominates in the same way that Shaq dominates in terms of physicality, but just in a different way. Shaq was bully and imposing, but Giannis is dominant in the same way. Giannis reminds me of a combination between like Bill Russell and Shaq. That's when I think of comparisons for Giannis. That's what I think of. But just pure dominance. That's what Giannis is. But for him to diversify his game, and like I said before, if Giannis can add a consistent 3-point shot, or if he can shoot at least above 33%, we're talking about an all-time top 5 greatest player. But he needs to diversify his footwork, especially in the mid-post, half jabs, hooks over the shoulder, off both hands, half spins, up and unders, step throughs. If he can continue to diversify that part of his game by working with Hakeem, that's just going to elevate his game to the next level, and that's where he needs to be at. But that's where I see on this. Let me know what you guys think about that. But I think this will be a great pairing for the two. I think Hakeem will show that his knowledge and skill in the game of basketball is transcendent, and it'll be beneficial and useful for every generation as the years go on and on and on. That's what generational players, that's what great all-time players do, are capable of doing. But let me know what you guys think about that. Alright guys, that is it for our show for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you haven't already, be sure to hit that like button and that subscribe button as well, so you guys can stay up to date on all related content that we post daily. And if you haven't already, be sure to follow us on Patreon as well. You can do so by going to patreon.com, click on the search bar and typing in GSMC Sports. That way you can access to all of our exclusive content that we post daily. And if you'd like to support a network or a company, you can do so by following the link in the ticker below. It's streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. Once again, it's streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. None of this is possible without you guys, the fans, so we're just so grateful and honored for all the love and support that you show us. If you haven't already, be sure to check out the other sports shows on our network as well. GSMC Baseball Podcast, GSMC College Football Podcast, GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast, and GSMC NFL Podcast as well. All of our hosts provide great content on the sports that they're covering, and it's an honor to be working alongside some of the best in the business when it comes to sports media personalities. So, that being said, guys, that's all we have for our show for today. We'll be back again same time tomorrow, 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So until then, continue to stay safe, be vigilant, make smart decisions, and until next time, guys, peace.